My name is Tara Andringa, and I'm the Executive Director of PAVE. Very excited to be your moderator today. One of the things that we like to talk about at PAVE is all the different ways that different places in the world are approaching autonomous vehicles. And so we've started a new series that we're going to try to do every now and then. Periodically we'll be looking at different countries and how they're approaching autonomous vehicles. This is our very first episode ever of AVs Around the World. And we wanted to talk to some people from Switzerland to talk about how the Swiss government and Swiss industry is approaching the topic of autonomous vehicles and to hear about a lot of the exciting things going on there. We have two amazing guests to join us today. Oliver Nahon from the Swiss Association for Autonomous Mobility is joining us, and Stafano Lungo from Embotech are both here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Wanted to first kind of just start really big picture and hear about what you both do and how you're involved in the autonomous vehicle space. Oliver, could you start by telling us about the Swiss Association for Autonomous Mobility, what your mission is and how it got started?
My pleasure. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. So the Swiss Association for Autonomous Mobility was created in context where actually Switzerland was one of the pioneering countries in Europe where there were lots of different automated shuttles that were brought around the country and that were piloted and demonstrated, in which actually people could actually use, right? There were over 15 different automated shuttles that were running around Switzerland, and the first one started in 2015, making it again one of the first in Europe. And because there were so many projects going around Switzerland, we thought it would make sense to actually centralize all the different competences, know-how, and efforts into one space under one roof called the Swiss Association for Autonomous Mobility, called SAM, of course. And the whole mission of SAM is to use this dynamism we got from the different shuttles, automated shuttles, use this dynamism to continue surfing on this wave and continue making Switzerland one of the leaders in Europe and in the world in terms of autonomous mobility.
Fantastic. And then Stefano, could you tell us about Embotech, what it is that you do and what your role is there?
Yes, so Embotech is a spin-out company from ETH, the ETH, which is the local engineering school here in Zurich. The company started in 2013, developing a software to solve optimization problems. So this is nothing specific to autonomous driving, it was kind of any sort of optimization problem you will find in a wind turbine, aircrafts, car, of course, power plants. But then I think it was around 2016, 2017 that we realized that most of our customers were buying this software for autonomous driving. So the company starts building up some kind of example software to how to use our software for autonomous driving until we realized we actually had pretty good software for autonomous driving, upon which we start building more and more. And now we have developed something that we call ProDriver. It's a virtual driver. Effectively, is a software that replaces the human driver. It can drive a car or any sort of road vehicle autonomously. And that's what we do. We're kind of unique worldwide because not many companies just focus on this particular part of the driving, what we call the motion planner. But we are indeed unique in Switzerland. There are many companies doing, Switzerland is a small country, but still there are a lot of companies that work in autonomous mobility, but not so much in the sphere where we are, which is motion planning.
Fantastic. And Oliver, SAM, it seems is kind of similar to PAVE in that you bring together all people across the AV ecosystem. I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about if they say Mootek is one of your members. Who are your members? And I'm also curious if the Swiss government is involved. Like, is that are you supported by the government, or is it an independent group?
Yeah, so we actually, first of all, SAM is pretty young. We were founded 1.5 years ago, and already today we have 33 members in total. And the different types of companies. We have companies such as Embotech, of course, technology companies. We have, well, universities such as the JZ, which Stefano mentioned, and some others in Switzerland. We have public transport operators, quite a lot actually in SEM. We have also some national road associations, and we also have some big worldwide companies, also members of SEM. All the members can be found on our website, of course. So quite broad. And to answer your second question, so in terms of government funding or government implication in SEM, well, one of our missions is to accompany the new regulations in Switzerland and to help the government in doing so. So due to the fact that we are quite new, we don't have direct funding or direct implication from the government. This comes from all of our members. However, as we are helping them in developing the regulations in order for them to be adapted to the new future mobility aspects, as a result, well, it is foreseen that we will have more and more contribution and help from the government, of course.
Great. And Stefano, I'm curious if you can actually talk to us a little bit about sort of what the approach is to AVs there, or what are the rules? What are the deployments in Switzerland right now? What do you see on the streets? Just if you can kind of give us an overview of the state of AVs there.
Sure. Right. Things are actually, I'll tell you a little story before going right into the question. The story is that we, before knowing about SAM, before actually Oliver once called me and we started chatting about this, I was pretty much sure that there was nothing going on in Switzerland, or very little. Our customer were in the US, in Germany, UK, quite a lot in Europe, actually in Australia, but not so much in Switzerland. And then it's by SAM that actually discovered that there were a lot of, there is an ecosystem here. But all these companies and the university departments and also kind of bigger company interested in autonomy, they were all kind of working separately. So I think now things are coming together. Switzerland still remains a small country, but that doesn't mean that autonomy hasn't got a place. It just has a place in very kind of specific area. For example, in the US, long haul trucking is a big thing.
Yep.
In Switzerland, maybe buses are more of a big thing. Moving people from a village in the valley to some other village, up the mountain somewhere. So increasing this type of mobility, or logistics centers, places where trucks now tend to do very dull jobs, moving pallets from one place to another. All the things can be automated. So automation exists here, is a big opportunity, but it's a different opportunity. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you won't see robo-taxis and big trucks in highway as quickly as you will see in the US, but you will see in automation of buses and logistics centers.
That's very interesting. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I think Stefano is absolutely right. Historically speaking, Switzerland never really has been a big actor in transports or vehicle manufacturing, right? It hasn't. However, historically speaking, it has always been quite an advance in terms of automation, right? This is also why Switzerland is one of the most competitive countries in the world, because all its machinery is automated and all its industries are automated. So in terms of pure automation technology aspects, I think we do have a quite good head start compared to some other countries. However, if we talk purely about transports and car manufacturing, well, no, this is not really Switzerland's core competence.
Right. And Oliver, actually, I was curious if you could, I know SAM supports a bunch of deployments or pilots. Could you tell us about a couple of the ways, kind of the use cases where autonomy is being used there? Sure.
So we do have different projects currently ongoing in Switzerland. I can maybe mention a couple in a very short way. So we have one in the north of Switzerland where we have a retrofitted vehicle turned into an autonomous, it's a minibus basically. And we want to have this minibus run without a safety operator on board and have it supervised with basically a remote supervision, teleoperation. So that's one of the projects. Another one is in Geneva. It's actually a European funded project. They have 5 automated shuttles running around Geneva. And well, the idea is to have them in an on-demand approach. So it's basically mobility as a service. So you can simply order the different shuttles with your phone and they can come and get you. Today, because of regulation aspects, well, there's a safety operator on board each shuttle. However, they're not doing anything, right? The shuttles are 100% autonomous and 100% on demand. So that works perfectly well. And then we'll see how we can maybe remove the safety operator on board. That's going to be the second step. And then another project, and I'll stop there because there are so many. We're going to try and see if it's worth having autonomous bus depot. So garages, buses, well, bus garages that are fully automated, and we'll see if there's a business application for that and if it's technology viable or not.
Fantastic. Stefano, are they? I'm curious if they're integrated in the rest of the public transit system. Obviously, Switzerland has a very robust, public transit system overall. Are these projects part of that system, or are they really separate?
At the moment, the projects where we are involved in Switzerland are pilot projects, tend to be separate.
Okay.
Having said that, we're not in Switzerland. Well, the public sector, the transport sector is very well integrated. To the point that as soon that's a belief. This is my opinion. As soon as we can prove the technology is viable and well, from a safety point of view and obviously economical viable as well, it will spread very quickly. You won't see pockets of technology here and there. You will see kind of happening very quickly everywhere in Switzerland.
Interesting. And I'm curious to talk a little bit about sort of regulation and policy and how Switzerland is approaching that. One of the things that's a common kind of thread of conversation in the United States is that regulation is largely left up to the states. So, and states are taking very different approaches to regulating AVs, and there's not as much of a national framework. I'm curious about in Switzerland, is it a national program, or do you see different communities have different approaches to, AVs or allow different things? How does that work there?
Yeah, so even though it's a federal system similar to the states, to the United States, here, well, the approach is still on a national level, because Switzerland is a 7-8 million inhabitants country. So of course it doesn't make sense to do it on a regional level. So yeah, the policies are addressed on the national level. SAM helps in that direction to kind of accompany these new laws. And to answer your question, well, currently when the process where the new road traffic law has, it is in the process of being validated by the different chambers along the process of the Swiss regulation process or validation law. And in addition to that, there's also currently a working group which is working on law ordinances. And the idea is to, let's say, adapt also the current law with this ordinance in order to integrate autonomous mobility components. And more precisely, well, we're going to be looking at autonomous vehicle delivery vehicles, having also remote supervision regulated also in Switzerland, having valet parking as well, and also seeing how we can remove the safety operators from automated shuttles, so linked to public transports as well. So all these different elements are currently being addressed in order to adapt the law accordingly.
Wonderful. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of the, we obviously at PAVE, we talk a lot about the potential benefits of autonomous vehicles, to the potential to create a safer highway system, a more sustainable system, a greater mobility options for people. And I'm curious sort of how you're prioritizing those there, what you see as the greatest potential gains. What are the issues that you're most focused on? Stefano, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, I can take this question. So autonomy has benefits in different areas where I think, we should see autonomy, driving autonomy, having the same benefit as autonomy has had in our society. It basically reduces it removed the human from non-creative jobs, let's put it this way. And of course, this could create other issues. But right now, for example, sorry if I go back to the trucking industry, because that's where I think autonomy will come first.
Yeah,
these are dull jobs, jobs that people don't want to do. In fact, there is a shortage of drivers. Okay, some cynical can say if you pay truck drivers more, maybe you will still have those, but then we won't have products at a competitive price, so everything comes together. So I see autonomy, driving autonomy, replacing those jobs that people shouldn't do. And that also has a safety component. I'll give you another example where we work. We work in the autonomy of trucks in ports. At the moment, these are extremely dangerous places. They are noisy. There is risk of container falling from cranes and these kind of things. So there is a safety element there. There is an efficiency element. Right now, a human truck driver arrives there. He needs to leave the truck when the truck is loaded and unloaded because it's not safe. Then comes back to the truck. This takes time. Humans needs to have breaks. It's difficult to organize shifts. You normally need for a 24-hour day. I think someone told that you need 4 or 5 drivers because of the shifts, the mechanism, and the fact that you want to take breaks. So there is an efficiency argument there, and autonomous trucks can drive 24/7. He only needs to stop when he needs to recharge, because hopefully in the future these trucks will be electric. And that's the next point. Electric trucks are still difficult to justify financially. They're still more expensive than a diesel truck. The only way to make an electric truck competitive to a diesel truck, if you can increase its efficiency, and the only way to do that is by making it autonomous. So autonomy will also unlock electrification. So which will have a kind of indirect effect to sustainability. So it's not a green solution by itself, but it will be a catalyst for more and more deployment of electric trucks. So these, I think, are the 3 main points: removing jobs that people don't want to do, increase efficiency, and reduce the CO2 emissions because of the uptake of electric trucks or vehicles in general.
Interesting. Actually, and you brought up 2 different issues actually that were related to questions that we got from the audience. Someone from the audience had asked, how do AVs support environmental sustainability? And you talk about the emissions, and if assuming that AVs are electric vehicles as well. Oliver, I'm curious if you have anything else to say about either the sustainability piece or the benefits that you and Sam are really focused on.
Different elements. Switzerland is in Europe one of the countries where there are the most vehicles per inhabitants, possession of vehicles, right? And maybe in that sense, having a system where we don't possess vehicles, but we have a service of mobility, can really reduce this and can be quite sustainable for society as well. Second point is that, we have lots of, public transport in Switzerland is very major, that like in most countries in Europe. And still, there are some remote places where it's not worth having public bus lines going there because the buses are always empty, right? No one actually takes them. So, having automated mobility services that take people on demand in these remote areas seems to be a good way to give more independence to the population, right? Seniors, children as well. So it's also about giving freedom to everyone and reducing the gap, right? Reducing the inequality between rural areas and urban areas as well.
Right. And another thing that Stefano brought up was the job issue, the workforce issue. Is that something that you at SAM work on as well? Another audience question we got is, what is Switzerland doing to kind of training people to support, new jobs needed in the AV industry? Is that something that SAM gets involved in at all?
I'd say in an indirect way.
Okay.
We do try and support universities, companies, or stakeholders to really try and develop the technology, at least in Switzerland, and also try and create awareness. So yes, I think that well, I'm talking for Switzerland here, but I think Switzerland has got quite an interesting role in the sense that we can easily, I think, create employment in automation. We already have, and we'll probably continue doing it. And this will clearly balance the number of jobs that could be taken by automation. And once again, like Stefano really well said, it's not about taking people's job. It's about taking the jobs that people don't want to do anymore, right? That are dangerous, that present risks, and going in the direction where society evolves.
Absolutely.
There will be new jobs. For example, the role of a site operator. Someone sat in a control room, making sure that the trucks, again,
Sure.
I'm talking about trucks because this we do, or the buses in a bus depot are all working correctly. So in a way, shifting from low-skill jobs to higher skilled jobs.
Absolutely. And we only have a few minutes left. And the last issue I want to talk about, because it's so central to PAVE and what we do, is kind of public perception and public education. And I'd like to talk to each of you about this. Stefano, I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about what you believe public perception is in Switzerland right now. And then Oliver, I'd love for you to talk about kind of from it's Sam, what you're doing to help educate the public. But Stefano, could you talk about what do you hear from the public there?
Yes, a good question. I have to say that I haven't run a proper study. I haven't gone around interviewing people and asking questions. But my feeling is that I think the Swiss are up for innovation. They of course have concerns that everyone has, the concern about safety, the concern about one concern is, for example, I do believe that autonomous driving will increase efficiency and therefore reduce emissions. But some people say, well, as soon as you make something more efficient, then you will have more of it. There will be more cars on the street because now it's so convenient that but I don't know if this applies in Switzerland. I think here are very good at keeping their environmental zones and regulating the use of private mobility. In Zurich, for example, I think the council in Zurich does it on purpose to make it so hard to have a car because it's difficult to park, it's expensive to move around, and really push people to use public transport. That yes, I think it will be a success. It will be very well accepted, and yes, I don't know, Oliver, you might have a better opinion. I'm not Swiss, by the way. I'm Italian. I live on the other side. Used to live on the other side of the Alps. I moved to Switzerland a few years ago, and there is a big difference from two sides of the Alps. So I don't know, Oliver, you might have a different opinion about.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you, Stefano. I mean, I think Switzerland is looking for solutions, right? We have lots of traffic jams due to the fact that we have well, our geography is quite limited, right? So we have lots of mountains. I mean, it's not a country where you can build lots of roads, so you got to optimize it. And yeah, having mobility as a service is, of course, a way to optimize it. And in a more global way, I think the Swiss citizens are usually open to innovation. As Stefano said, I think they're open to the idea of having more skilled jobs. And what we do at SAM, concretely, to try and create this awareness is what you have actually some real showcases. For example, at the museum of, we have a Swiss National Museum of Transport. So it's actually by far the biggest museum in Switzerland. It hosts, welcomes over 1 million visitors a year. And there we had different events where we presented remotely operated vehicles. So vehicles with no drivers inside, people could sit in them. And for the first time, actually for the first time in my life, I saw children in a vehicle with no driver inside. The steering wheel was moving by itself, and it was simply driven by somebody that was elsewhere remotely. And that was amazing because I was wondering if the parents would accept for their children to go in such a vehicle, but actually they were so proud about it. They were taking pictures. They were really happy. The child was smiling inside, like, look at me. I'm in a vehicle by myself without having any drivers there. I can go wherever I want. That's kind of the spirit you felt. So it was amazing, and people could also experiment automated shuttles as well. We also had some workshops where children could develop their own algorithms to have their own small miniature vehicle run by itself, and some children actually managed to make it work. So we have some new engineers, a new generation of engineers coming over. But yeah, I think the more we can address the public in a practical way, I think the better it would be for their understanding of the technologies.
Fantastic. And in terms of your, the museum is I love that story. That's fantastic. And I think we need something like that here as well in the United States. What other broader efforts are you making to educate the public or engage the public? You mentioned the pilots that you have ongoing. Are people pretty accepting of that, or have you had to do a lot of education around that as well?
So, well, I think our focus isn't as specific as it is for PAVE. We have different focuses: technology, regulation, and social acceptance. It's one of our 3 pillars. And we're still working to see what is the best approach to create this awareness and have people understand the outcomes of autonomous mobility. So we're still in this process of understanding what the best approach is. But these events we mentioned, I think we will continue to have them, and we will create surveys out of them, understand how users feel once they've tested out these technologies, and then we can see how we can move on from there.
One of the things that we're still dealing with hugely in the United States is confusion. What we see is a lot of people not understanding kind of the levels of autonomy. And I don't mean that it's not that we're trying to get people to be able to say level 3 vehicle, at all, but people, in PAVE, we have this constant conversation about people, for example, people thinking a Tesla is a self-driving car, and just a lot of confusion about what's on the roads today, and that advanced driver assistance systems are not autonomy. Is that something that you deal with there as well? Do you see that similar confusion, or is that not as much of an issue for you all?
I think here we have a very simple kind of shortcuts to remember the 5 levels of autonomy. So level 0 is no autonomy. Level 1 is feet off. So only the hand, you don't need the feet anymore. So feet off, level 1. Level 2 is hands off. So no hands on the steering wheel, no feet on the pedal. Level 3 is eyes off. Now you can close your eyes. Level 4 is mind off. You can fall asleep. Level 5 is human off.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. It's a very different approach. And do you find that most people in your community, is that something just kind of the industry is understanding, or do you feel like a lot of people in the public do have a pretty good understanding of?
No, not really.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
In my view, it's more the professionals who understand the different levels of autonomy.
Sure.
I think there's not that much distinction from the general public.
Absolutely. Well, we'll end with where can we begin, is that you know, AV education is a global issue, and that we are, it's exciting to hear a perspective from Switzerland. It really, you know, I've been just wowed with all the work you're doing and the efforts you're doing. And it's been great working with Sam over the last year or so, and complementing things that we're doing at PAVE and things that you're doing at SAM. It's just been a great partnership. And but both of you, Oliver and Stefano, thank you so much for joining us. Great to hear about the tremendous work that you're doing, and we look forward to future collaboration. Everyone, thank you for joining us today, and you can check out all of our panels at pavecampaign.org, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tara, and thank you very much, Faith, for having us.
Thank you.